Yes, thank you. Excited to be here. Well, yeah, I'm an online entrepreneur, been online since 1995, so we're coming up on 31 years. Generated over $400 million in sales and in various different industries. And I started at a very young age wanting to be my own boss because I didn't want anybody having control over my destiny or my future. And so, that's kind of how I got my start. Primarily successful in the supplement space, but like I said, very, very other different industries. And now I show people who are cash rich, time poor, basically the me of 10 years ago, on how they don't have to be the bottleneck in their business. They don't have to sacrifice their family in pursuit of business success. They can have both, just implement the correct frameworks and then be intentional about spending time with your family because I've lived this experience where my dad lost his family. I was on the verge of losing mine and had to make a shift and everything came out for the better, but it was a process and I've survived to tell about it. Absolutely, yeah. And a little backstory to getting to that moment is this goes back to like middle school, high school, and I played basketball in those years, about 6 years, and I played in about 40 games, I'd say overall. And my dad only made it to one of those games. And as a young child, maybe preteen, teen, or those early years, you're thinking, wow, why isn't my dad here? Is work more important? And so it's a little confusing for a young child who needs the approval of the father in order to thrive and succeed. And I remember like I'd score a basket, and then it sort of like looked to the empty stands. There's no dad there. My friends, my teammates would score, and their dads are there cheering them on. Oh, there's my boy. Here's your Gatorade, pat on the back. And I remember looking at one of the dads just loving on his kids after that, and I was like, I wish he was my dad. And that's just like a raw emotion that I had. And my dad was not a bad man, and that would have crushed my dad hearing that at any point in his life because he was a medical doctor, very, very successful on paper, very busy, saving lives. And I kind of had this phrase that I told myself that I'm loaning him to the world to make the world a better place, but I'm sacrificing that, how kids cope. And he was a good provider. Great homes, cars, and trips to Europe. But at the time that I needed him the most, he wasn't there. And I didn't care about all that stuff. I just looked at another dad who was present for his kid. And I was like, I wish he was my dad. And so that's just that raw emotional moment. And then fast forward 20 years, this is now 10 years ago. My dad, he's 67 years old, entering his 40th year of his practice, sort of gearing up for the last third of his life because his parents, my grandparents, had just passed away a couple years prior in their mid 90s. So he's like, I got longevity, strong genes. They were healthy to the end, sort of died of old age and then heartbroken, my other grandparents shortly after. So, hey, sign me up for that as a way to go. And it's there's this phrase, God laughs at man's plans. At the beginning of 2015, he was diagnosed with a fatal form of cancer, and it was a bit crushing there to hear that, especially my dad's a doctor, and you think that they're invincible or what have you, but things really come into priority. He made his peace with the Lord and other people that he had in his life. And one of the last things he told me before he passed away, and this is like 2 weeks, almost like a deathbed confession, he said, don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours. And Leo's my son at the time. He's like 10 months old. And I'm already blowing things like he's already starting to walk and talk and communicate. And I'm depending on my wife to send me pictures of things because I'm like not there. I'm not present. And so that hit me in a couple of ways. First, it was validation that pain that I had experienced as a child actually went somewhere. He actually cared. Never asked for that closure. Never had to seek forgiveness for that. But somehow that just was like a sweet moment. Then the other side was like, oh my goodness, I'm my dad all over again. I'm doing the nice homes, cars, and trips to Europe every summer. But he taught me that in order to be successful, you got to sacrifice your family and your presence. And that's just this big lie. And it's not his fault. He probably saw it from his dad, and we're just repeating, kind of the generational pattern. And so that was the first time that I was lovingly instilled or agitated from my dad in a loving way that I can't keep going this way. I remember as a kid how that was not a good, pleasant experience, and I don't want to pass that down on my son. So his biggest regret in life really became my biggest mission in life. And first, it had to be for me. I didn't ever realize I'd be sharing this with the world. And so fast forward 3 years, I'm still kind of in this rat race in my mind, as far as like I'm working 60, 80 hours a week, and I'm on the verge of just like wanting to like blow up my business, sabotage it, sell it, get out of it. Like I'm hating life. Printing money though, I'm, $20 million a year business, extremely profitable, allowing me to do all the things I want to do from a material perspective in life, but I'm just not enjoying it, and I just wanted out of it. So it led for me to get on a call with my dear friend now, but at the time he was like a coach and mentor. And to sum up a 2-hour conversation, he basically said, quit doing the things you don't like doing and stick to doing the things you like doing. And I was like, my goodness, 23 years in business, but I guess better late than never for it to like land. My expertise is copywriting, sales, video sales letters, conversions, funnels, average order value, recurring revenue, all the fun stuff of online marketing, not, merchant accounts, infrastructure, customer support, all this stuff. And I had 40 people working for me at the time, but I had the world's worst org chart. It's me up here and then 40 people down here. I think I'm delegating, I'm handing out tasks, and it just boomerangs back to me. And of course, part of the self-identity of the entrepreneur is I'm the hero in my business. Nobody can do it as well as I can. So sure, send it back. I will do it for you, and off we go. But now I'm training my team that I'm the firefighter for my company, not them. And I have this new definition for insanity. We all know the definition is, doing something over and over and expecting a different result. But my definition now, or my addition to it, is when you pay somebody to do something and you end up doing it over and over, that's kind of insane too, and extremely inefficient. So I was insane for several years on that philosophy. And so over the next 2.5, 3 years, and it went a little longer because self-control entrepreneurs, we just want to hang on to everything as long as we can. But it took about 3 years to reach the transformation. More than doubled my business, just shy of $50 million. But now I'm living a semi-retired lifestyle. Wasn't, by magic or wishful thinking, but it's implementing some of the frameworks. For example, one of the things that I did was I reviewed my time. I was working 60 to 80 hour weeks. And then when I analyzed my time, I realized that 40 of those hours were $50 and under tasks that I was doing. And I'm a $1,000, $10,000 an hour guy when I'm at my, top level performance and doing the strategic stuff that moved the needle in my business, not this paper shuffling and kind of back end stuff. Important, but it shouldn't be me doing it. It should be somebody else. So I realized, wow, for $2,000, I can buy back half of my week. And now all that strategic and needle moving stuff that I used to do, burned out, frustrated, low efficiency, now it's all I'm focusing on: high efficiency, high energy, excitement. Because once you buy back a little bit of your time, you're addicted to that. You're like, what else can I do? And so that's how I was able to live a semi-retired lifestyle. Starting in 2021, I was buying businesses, buying real estate, buying all kinds of property. I was teaching my son, who was 8 years old at the time, how to negotiate real estate deals. I never missed any of his games. To this current day, my son even has a podcast. He's like loving the stuff that I'm doing, which is kind of an example of just being present. So when my dad said, don't miss Leo's games, he literally meant don't miss his games, but also don't miss out on his life. And so, yeah. And over the last number of years, I've had a number of friends and peers and just different, networks and groups. They don't talk to each other, have told me, you need to teach people how you do this. And I'm like, do what? They're like, well, you're always traveling. You're always doing this. You're buying real estate. You're still making money. You're pouring into your family, because we homeschool our kids. So he comes with us everywhere. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? And it took a while, but over the last 6-7 months of this year, the whole concept of buying back time, removing yourself from being the bottleneck so that you can be present for your family, that there's frameworks of doing that, came into play. Now, you can be somebody, you could be a single 50-year-old woman who loves to travel, and you're a bottleneck in your business. And so that's what you do when you buy back your time. I'm a family first, father first guy, and I know that my story is going to resonate with a lot of men in the same position, like me, cash rich, time poor, 10 years ago. They're going to want to know, how can I do this so that I can be present for my family, present for my kids, my sons, my daughters, so that we don't have to have iPads and iPhones raising them. It can be dad in the house making the impact that they were born to make. And so I know I kind of threw a lot out there at you, but I figured I'd give you the whole perspective.
No, I love it. So I love the passion. I love the story. So two things to my audience I want to say, right? Is that there's a medical diagnosis for this called, an almost a depressive state of living in the valley of despair. Right? It is this vicious cycle of doing, trying to lead, trying to get out of it, but not really having any structure in place to be able to get out of that valley of despair, to get to a level of performance that you want to be at, where you live a balanced life, where you can still do all those things. And it's not about the 20 million or 40 million dollars a year. It's about, no matter where you are in your leadership journey, that we are all falling to this. I've been there, done that, struggling with it even today, to figure out what is the right approach, how much time should I dedicate, how much time should I focus on doing the things that I really should be focused on, which is family first, before taking on all of the other things, right? And money, on the end of the day, does not make for happiness, right? And you know that you've experienced it. You came very close to the edge of losing everything that you have. So with that said, the second thing I want to remind the audience is that, George is telling a really good story and he's been very successful. The goal is to always learn to relate to each other, not compare, right? Just because he has $50 million revenue doesn't mean that because you make, a $100,000 paycheck, that you are lesser important or not in this trap. You too can very much, fit into this narrative and the story. The impact on your family is just a little different than if you have money in the bank, right? You say cash rich and otherwise poor in many other areas of your life itself. So that is important to remind everybody. So thank you for sharing that story and being vulnerable. That's another message that I was trying to deliver to leaders, is that being vulnerable is your first step to recovery, right? It's really, really important to do. Second part, I would love to go to the actionable. You talk a little bit about the framework. So when I speak to my clients, I always reasonably assure them that I can find at least 11 and a half hours per week that they are doing things that they should not be doing. And I love the way you put that, right? Is that these are, $50 an hour things that I'm doing, that while my value is a multiplier of that. In other words, you can say, listen, people work below their license, and that really should be done by somebody else, not by task, but by truly delegating, shifting the performance from you to the performance. So tell me a little bit about your framework. How did you recover from this illness, and what is it that you have learned and put into play, and what is it that you teach forward now to other people?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing, and I touched on it earlier, is that you have to document everything that you do. And I know I say that and people are like, oh my gosh, I don't document anything. Because the first thing I do is say, hey, look at the last week or 2 weeks in your calendar. And if you were like me back then, the response is, oh my gosh, yeah, I don't have a whole lot to show. I show I have a call, but it's not like I'm putting exactly what I'm doing. And so I'd say, okay, well, start now for the next week or 2 weeks, and document everything that you do, everything from brushing your teeth to taking a phone call. You don't want to essentially keep things out of there, because we need to get a clear picture of what you're doing. That's how you're going to get the level of detail to make these kind of decisions, and review. And so and you'll see a pattern in 2 or 3 days, but give it a week minimum, up to 2 weeks, and you'll identify that you're doing things that you should not be doing. And there's 3 things you could do with any task that you shouldn't be doing. That's eliminate. You can eliminate low value tasks, and those are things that don't move the needle. You can automate things that repeat, that you shouldn't be doing. There's a lot of AI tools out there that can carry some of this heavy lifting, or delegating it with proper structure. And then there's delegation, and there's a right and a wrong way to delegate. Like 10 years ago, I would have told you, yeah, I'm delegating great. I got a team of 40 people. Everything just keeps coming back to me. It's because I was delegating without showing them what the outcome looks like, and then giving them the liberty to improve upon that. And so Now I delegate by transferring ownership. I'll automate things or eliminate things that don't need to happen. And so when you look at everything through that lens, it allows you to move things off of your plate that you shouldn't be doing. And even in that process, you want to identify what is my hour worth. For me, like I said, I'm anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 an hour. It's not like I work 80-hour weeks at that dollar value, but if I'm doing things that only I as the business owner can do, which is strategic relationships and activities that move the needle as opposed to, kind of paper shuffling. Again, important stuff, but it shouldn't be the business owner doing it. That's how you buy back time. That's how you make more money, and that's how you optimize your work time. And then of course that translates to time that you're able to, you're buying back for your own personal health, because we need to take care of ourselves so that we don't, so that we're around as long as possible for our family, and then of course be present with our family so we can impart on them and be leaders. And not only does that strengthen the nuclear family, that can have a generational impact, because your children are likely to follow in your footsteps. So yeah, hopefully answered that. And
Yeah, I listen. The tool that you just mentioned is that, and I would encourage do it for 2 weeks, right, over a period of time. Make one column value adding, right? What am I willing to pay for? And then non-value adding. What are the things nobody's willing to pay for? And maybe we should stop doing that. It's amazing to see how much stuff we do every day, every week that nobody wants to pay for, and it's not necessary. Sometimes it's non-value added, but it's regulatory requirement. You have to keep it. But the key question that you got to is this, right? Is that, do I have to do this? Now, did you do this alone, or did you seek out some coaching and mentorship to work with somebody to help you stay honest to this? Because remember that your ego, your pride, your sense of like, I can only do this is overbearing at times. And you need a little bit of help along the way. So tell me a little bit about that connection of the action that somebody can take who's listening to this. To do the exercise is one thing, but actually take the action on that. How did you go about doing that to be successful in a sustainable way?
Absolutely, yeah. And there are these habits, and our old patterns and our old identities can sort of bubble up and sort of like take on things that we already bought back. We fought hard to get that off the plate. Now we're like back into it. I've been guilty of that. So you need to have the ability to spot that and quickly decide, hey, we're not going back to the old patterns. But yeah, it took me to have a coach, to have a mentor, to like open my eyes to this possibility. And yeah, you could do a lot of this stuff. And if you're the type of person that can just go get her and make it happen, there's some people on this earth that can do that, then yeah, you could totally do that with the frameworks. But oftentimes it's the accountability and somebody holding you accountable to like cross the finish line. That's when real action happens. And so yeah, in my case, my coach essentially opened my eyes to what was going on, but it takes me to like actually do the work and then communicate back with my coach. This is what I found, get his input, his analysis, and then hold me accountable to getting to the finish line. That collapsed the time frame had it just been up to me to figure this stuff out. Because yeah, information's freely available online, but it's the accountability and structure and encouragement and just kind of getting you to the finish line is what really like move the needle in your own life.
Yeah, and the thing is that people need to remember that it takes 90 to 120 days to establish a new habit. And even then you need to go back and continue to check. So the advice that, of tracking for 2 weeks, really looking hard at what do I need to do, what is below my license, to work with a coach or mentor for accountability for a sustained period of time to really get to that. And then, of course, you told us about what the recovery is, right? That value that you can now have with Leo and spending quality time with him at the games or every facet of life, and including home teaching and doing all the traveling. So I think that is a dream of many, and I think that is attainable, but you need to stay true to yourself. Where can people find you, George?
Yeah, so I created a movement. It's called Buyback Time Formula. I have a book with the same title and a domain with that. So buybacktimeformula.com. There you'll see information on my book. You'll see links to my socials. And yeah, if you find yourself in need of wanting some hand holding, somebody to walk across this journey with you that's been there, done that, you can reach out to me as well from that website.
Excellent. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll make sure that it goes into the show notes as well. Leave us with a parting thought.
Yeah, I'd say, we can always make more money. We can recover from big setbacks. Hey, join the club if you can relate with that. But we can never redo a childhood. And so that was the big eye opener for me, is that these years are going to pass, and they're going to pass whether I'm present or not. So I'd rather be present so that, at the end of my days, I'm not reflecting, looking back, thinking, oh, I'm so glad I missed these games. It's like, no, I want to be able to say that I gave it my all. I was present for those games, because when we give up important moments for our family, like games and recitals and things like that, by the time we're at our end of our days, we're not going to remember the name of that client or that situation, but we'll always remember those games and those events. And so, kind of like thinking with the end in mind, like I want to look back at my life and reflect. And we're all going to say, hey, I wish I could have done this or that better. But overall, I gave it my best. I was present for my family, and now I'm able to witness my family carry that down the generations.
Excellent. It really is rock solid advice, and I think that getting some time back into your life where it matters is probably the best decision any one of us can ever make. George, thank you very much for joining the show today. I really, really appreciate it. Great words of wisdom, and I'm happy that you have survived that and thriving going forward. Look forward to having a follow-up conversation someday. Again, to everybody listening today, thank you very much. Again, nothing happens unless you take action. If you need me or need George, reach out to us. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions. And again, the best thing to do is click like, share, make a comment, and let's keep the ball moving. We'll see you again soon in the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.